At 7:04 p.m., a high-definition security camera captured 14-year-old Hana Sato entering the elevator of the skyrise residences in central Tokyo. The doors slid shut, sealing her inside a steel box monitored by 3 independent lenses. 30 seconds later, the elevator reached the 42nd floor and opened. The interior was empty. There were no hatches in the ceiling, no gaps in the floor, and the elevator had made no intermediate stops. Hana Sato had not simply gone missing. She had seemingly been erased from the physical world while traveling through 30 feet of vertical space. This is not a ghost story, nor is it a glitch in the digital record. It is the beginning of the most logically defiant kidnapping in modern Asian history, a case that would eventually expose a structural nightmare hidden behind the city's most prestigious address. The skyrise residences were marketed as the safest building in Japan. With biometric scanners at every entry point and over 600 AI-integrated cameras, it was a fortress for the elite. Hana's father, a high-frequency trader, lived in the penthouse. When Hana failed to emerge from the elevator to meet her tutor, the building's security team immediately locked down all exits. Within minutes, every frame of footage was scrutinized. They saw Hana enter. They saw the elevator move. They saw the doors open to a void. The logic of the physical world suggests that Hana must have been inside that box. Forensic technicians dismantled the elevator car that night, peeling back the stainless steel panels and inspecting the motor housing. They found nothing but grease and wiring. There was no biological trace, no sign of a struggle, and most importantly, no Hana. The first pivot in the investigation came 4 hours later. While the police were still treating the incident as a potential mechanical anomaly or a runaway case, a single digital file was sent to the father's private server. It was an audio recording, 10 seconds long. It wasn't a voice. It was the rhythmic thud of a human heart, amplified and distorted. The metadata of the file was stripped, but the file name was a sequence of numbers, 44.02.12. To the detectives, it looked like a coordinate or a date. To the architect of the building, who was brought in for questioning, it was a chilling realization. Those numbers represented a specific structural void, a dead zone in the building's blueprints where the plumbing and ventilation systems converged. As the search shifted from the visible rooms to the internal arteries of the tower, a terrifying pattern emerged. The skyrise residences were built on the site of a former psychiatric hospital that had burned down in the late 1980s. During the reconstruction, the developers had encountered a series of underground tunnels and structural instabilities that forced them to deviate from the original designs. The result was a building that possessed shadow spaces, areas of several square meters that existed between the walls of luxury apartments, inaccessible by doors and invisible to the security grid. These were the lungs of the building, meant for airflow, but they had become a labyrinth for someone who knew the blueprints better than the residents did. 6 hours into the disappearance, the police deployed thermal imaging drones into the ventilation shafts. The screens remained a cold monochromatic blue until they reached the 38th floor. There, nestled behind a master bedroom's walk-in closet, they detected a localized heat signature. It was the shape of a human, huddled in a space less than 2 feet wide. The tactical team breached the wall with silent precision, expecting to find Hana. Instead, they found a mannequin dressed in Hana's school uniform, fitted with a high-fidelity speaker that was looping the heartbeat audio. On the mannequin's chest was a handwritten note. "The building remembers what you buried." This was the moment the investigation transformed from a search for a victim into a descent into a decades-old corporate conspiracy. Hana's father wasn't just a trader, he was the primary investor who had funded the skyrise project. He had been the one to authorize the efficient disposal of the hospital ruins, which included the remains of patients who had no surviving kin. The kidnapping was not motivated by money, but by a precise, surgical brand of retribution. The kidnapper was using the building's own architecture as a weapon against its creator. But the question remained, how did she disappear from a moving elevator? The answer lay in a phenomenon known as the blind frame. In high-end security systems, there is a microsecond delay when a camera switches from one server to another during vertical transit. Someone had hacked the building's central nervous system to extend that microsecond into a 3-second loop. During those 3 seconds, the elevator had not stopped, but the floor of the car had. A false floor, installed by a technician months prior, had been triggered to drop 6 inches, allowing a person to be pulled into a narrow maintenance gap behind the elevator track while the car was in motion. It was a stunt that required the timing of a magician and the access of an insider. By the 12th hour, the tension within the skyrise had reached a breaking point. The kidnapper began broadcasting live video to every smart television in the building. The footage showed Hana, awake and uninjured, sitting in a room that looked remarkably like a hospital ward from the 1980s. The wallpaper was peeling, and the medical equipment was decades out of date. The contrast between the hypermodern tower and this decaying room created a surreal, psychological pressure. The kidnapper's voice, digitally masked, issued a single demand. Her father must walk to the basement's sub-level 4 and admit, on camera, to the location of the hospital's lost wing. Sub-level 4 did not officially exist. According to the city's records, the building ended at sub-level 3. However, the architect's private journals, seized by the police, revealed that a massive concrete vault had been poured over a section of the old hospital's basement to save on demolition costs. They hadn't destroyed the past, they had simply entombed it. The missing room Hana was in wasn't miles away. It was directly beneath the feet of the residents, a pocket of history preserved in a sarcophagus of steel and glass. The logical pivot that broke the case occurred when a junior detective noticed a discrepancy in the building's power consumption. The hospital room in the video had functioning lights and a vintage heart monitor. That equipment required electricity. By tracing the parasitic power draw from the building's main grid, they narrowed the location down to a specific structural pillar in the southeast corner of the basement. The pillar was hollow. It was a vertical transit shaft for the kidnapper, a private elevator hidden within the very bones of the skyscraper. The climax of the mystery didn't end with a shootout or a chase. It ended with a mechanical revelation. When the police reached the hidden vault in the sub-basement, they found the entrance sealed with a pneumatic door that could only be opened from the inside. The kidnapper was not a stranger. He was the head of the building's maintenance department, a man whose father had been one of the patients abandoned during the hospital fire. For 5 years, he had lived a double life, maintaining the luxury of the elite during the day and meticulously restoring his father's final resting place at night. He hadn't kidnapped Hana to hurt her. He had kidnapped her to ensure the world would finally look down at what the skyrise was built upon. In the final 5% of the narrative, the how becomes chillingly clear. Hana was never in danger. The kidnapper had designed the disappearance to be so impossible that it would force a level of scrutiny the developers could never survive. He had used the elevator trick not just to take her, but to prove that the building's security, the very thing the residents paid millions for, was a lie. When the vault was finally opened, Hana was found playing a handheld game, completely unaware of the chaos above. The kidnapper was gone, having exited through a drainage pipe that led to the city's sewer system, leaving behind a complete digital record of the corporate crimes committed 30 years prior. The case of the skyrise vanishing changed the way the world viewed smart cities. It proved that no matter how much technology we wrap around ourselves, we are still subject to the physical reality of the spaces we inhabit. The building was eventually condemned after the discovery of the unstable substructures. Today, the skyrise stands as a hollow shell in the Tokyo skyline, a monument to the fact that the past is never truly buried. It is only waiting for the right moment to rise through the floorboards. The girl who vanished in 30 seconds reminds us that the most terrifying mysteries aren't the ones we can't solve, but the ones that show us the ground we stand on is not as solid as we believe.